Welcome to One Insight. My name is Rich Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything.
I'm going to call this episode Stop Practicing. In a moment, you're going to hear me talking to Anu. Anu's been a member of Transition Excellence, my group of high-level leaders who are becoming high-level consultants and coaches. And Anu shares this story with me. I draw out her story. Best words you can ever say to a client. Tell me your story. She shares how she's been a leader from a young age, some of the extraordinary things she's done in her life. And we get to the end of the conversation and she's talking about how she's held back as a consultant from not bringing what's really needed. And I know I have to channel this. I have to step powerfully into leadership and call out of Anu. This is who you need to be. So by the end of this, both of us are full of energy, and I pause the episode in that moment. Sometimes you'll hear me continue after the edit where we've cut the episode and connect. Here I needed to stop. I needed Anu to go out with this energy like this, because this is a woman who's a natural leader and she needs to go out and call out the leadership of her people. Stop practicing. Hi, Anu.
Hi, Rich.
Hey. So you're in Transition Excellence. It's one of the most exciting programs I've created in the last few years. The story behind Transition Excellence is that I've been a best kept secret in the coaching world for a long time. If you know who I am, it seems like I'm around a lot, but in most of the coaching world, I'm not known. I've written a book that sold almost 100,000 copies, but still that's a drop in the ocean. And I watched over the years, 16 years of building my business, over a decade of helping coaches. And I realized relatively recently, in the last year or so, there's something I do that's very different. I help leaders who've been very successful in a previous life fly as coaches or consultants or trusted advisors. And I thought, well, it's time to start letting people know about this. I've got a business partner who's a digital marketer. I'm leaning into my edge of something I've never done before, of becoming more known. And we've had over 80 people, I think, have come through Transition Excellence. And I realized, for this season of the podcast, I want to tell some of your stories. I want to draw your stories out. So thank you for being with me. You up for playing?
I'm ready. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're here. Look, one of my favorite coaching questions is an unusual one. It's not so much a question. It's these words. Tell me your story.
Yeah, that's always a difficult one. Where would you like me to start?
Well, actually, funny enough, when you were really young, I know that's always the joking answer, shall I begin when I was a child? And actually, yes. What did you love to do when you were around 6 years old? What lit you up when you were a youngster?
When I was reading the book, that question is posed there, and I couldn't think of anything that I could come up with. So I called my dad to find out. I said, Dad, what is it that I loved doing when I was 6 years old? And I think after a few minutes, he says, I was like the leader of the kids. I was like a counselor. So after school, we would all get together and we had it was a new construction. So we would sit on those half-built walls that we could get to. And I would sit on the highest one because I had to see everybody. And I would listen to their school problems and who got yelled at in school, and then the kids would look up to me and go, so what should we play today? And I would tell them, what should we play today? And I used to get in trouble for that a lot because it looked like, so that was my favorite thing, because I felt like if I don't tell them what to do, there'll be chaos and our playtime would be over and we'd have to go home.
So here's what I hear. You've literally been a leader, a coach, and a consultant your entire life.
That's what it felt like when I was reading the book. I'm like, oh my God, that's what it is. It has been something I've been doing for a long time.
Yeah. And we forget, right? I was looking at your profile on LinkedIn. You know, you've got a background in marketing, in client relations. You were vice president in private banking. You've done some really interesting things in your life and career. Where's the golden thread if we trace it back from being 6, where you were kind of naturally a leader, a coach, and a consultant? Where's that golden thread through your career?
Ironically, now that when I think back, you meet people who know what they want to do and they go on their way. I was not one of those people. I was always looking up to my parents, my school, my teachers. What do I do next? How do I win their approval, and how do I get good at this? So I kind of fell into one thing after another because I was always trying to exceed expectations. So I never really had my own thread. That sometimes makes me very angry because I feel like I never figured out what I really wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I just went from one thing to another. School was the same way. I just wanted to keep excelling at everything. I wanted to just prove myself constantly. Mm-hmm. After high school, there was so much pressure that I just decided I just want to do something radically different. And I went and got my commercials pilot license. I started flying for a little bit.
That didn't pop up on LinkedIn.
Should put that on there. And then, sadly, September 11 happened, and that kind of changed the trajectory of my career. And then, you have to follow other things. I had to get married and things like that. So let me capture, because I want to see if I'm hearing this thread in here. Because whilst it looks like I went from one thing to another, I never really knew what I wanted to do. On the outside, I get that. What I'm guessing on the inside was still a desire to be a leader, to lead. Sometimes that looks like a desire to excel. I know that story of trying to prove myself to my parents. I know if it was to your parents. Yep, I see the nods. And so, but that was the golden thread. There's this youngster who's a leader, this young woman who wants to excel, to prove herself, and continually goes into positions where she's able to do so. She says, even, I want to do things differently. And that if your parents were anything like mine, they were driving me to a profession. And it was it took me a long time before I got out. You in the early days said, no, I'm going to be a commercial pilot. Who does that? Yeah, it was very radical for my time and the place I came from.
Yeah.
And my parents supported me grudgingly, but they supported me. And
when you say place I came from, is that a cultural thing you're referring to?
I'm from India. I grew up in India, and especially the city I'm from, we are a very conservative family with very conservative values. Things have to happen in a very chronological order. You go to good school, you become a professional, you get married, you have a family. And I was just, that was a turn I took, and I just was not willing to give up because I felt like it was something I needed to do. I didn't know if it was flying, but I just went off and did it anyways.
But again, I'm saluting your courage. I come from a Jewish family, so very similar values around what it means to raise kids. And you had the courage to say, I'm going to do things differently. Yeah, September 11th made some really radical shifts across every society. But you were there. You were making this change in your life. So what I hear underneath all of this is there's a theme of leadership. There's a theme of excelling. There's a theme of helping others. And there's also a theme of, you're not going to put me in a box. I mean, it's 2021. I'm wondering how many female pilots there are in India today, let alone 20 years ago.
No, it was something very different.
Yeah. So take me a bit more into the future right now. I created Transition Excellence for you. I mean, I didn't know it. I didn't know you at the time, but it's a program for leaders who want to take this career of leading others. And the line I use, you've heard it before, is it wasn't called coaching throughout most of human history. It was called leadership. Mm-hmm. People have an expert in leadership to take this leadership into other arenas as a coach and as a consultant, as a trusted advisor. There was a moment before you signed up for Transition Excellence in which you were doubting it, hesitating, wondering if you should press the button and say, I'm in. What were the doubts that held you back from saying yes to Transition Excellence?
Actually, Rich, I was very excited when I saw the Transition Excellence offering. Coaching was not on the horizon for me at all. I had no idea what coaching was. And the moment I plugged in coaching, kind of ads started coming up online. Mm-hmm. I just ran away.
Yep.
And then I found you through Mindvalley, actually. And I saw a coaching video, and I'm like, I have to be coached by Rich. And no, I'm not signing up for any program. I'll be coached one-on-one. So I go on your website and I see, I'm like, okay, I can't take out a second mortgage yet. So I have to get to Rich. And it kind of started with the book. And I was actually going to sign for PK, and then Transition Excellence happened and I jumped right on it. There was no hesitation. I knew I wanted to do it. I've learned so much just by watching the videos that were available out there. I did the course through EverCoach. So I had no hesitation. I was all in. Okay,
that's interesting. That's fun to hear. And so what's the journey been like? Because you just shared you had no desire to be a coach in that moment. What's that journey been like from the moment you joined Transition Excellence till today? How long has that journey been, first of all?
I started in June. Mm-hmm. And it's the experience it's nothing that I imagined, nothing I expected it to be. There's one thing I strongly believe in, and I have never been able to articulate it to my leadership, is that, that hero syndrome of leadership is gone, like the one person leading the show. Yeah. We have to look at the collective team and collective leadership. Transition Excellence gave me that. It's like you're in the calls, but literally the program is being run by the people, the participants. And the things they're creating just by supporting each other is amazing. The space that you have created, I feel like organizations need to do that. The biggest realization I had was I came in to get some formal coach training, to learn to be a coach. I thought I was going into a coaching world, but I'm actually bringing coaching into my consulting world, if that makes sense. Mm. It has switched the way I'm presenting my work to my people, because inherently I'm still a consultant. Yep. I can't take that hat off. I get called out in peer coaching all the time that I know you're consulting, you're not coaching. So I'm learning that, but
well, I'm going to play with you on that. I'm going to support you on that because I know you want to bring more of that in. I can tell. So let me just capture what you just said, though, because I appreciate that around leadership. And then we'll talk about how I can support you in this moment around that next step.
Thank you.
I have a belief that the job of a leader is to create more leaders, not more followers. And
you're doing exactly that.
Thank you. I appreciate you recognizing that. And it's challenging because we're human, right? It does feel good to be acknowledged by people. And if you're creating followers, then you feel good because they put you on this pedestal and you're bringing people around you. It's how most people show up in life because we all have this deep desire to be loved by mommy or daddy, and we didn't get enough of it as kids, and it plays out in the world right now. And so it's challenging, this job of leadership. And if you really want to be a high-level leader, your job is to step out of the way, create space for others to rise. So I love that you want to bring that concept in. I do my best to model it, but to bring that out into the world. So you consult right now. What's your thing? If someone was interested in consulting with you, what's the area which you consult around?
So I started consulting in marketing and public relations because that was my background. But while I am in my current job, I started to learn more about change management. So that's the area I'm consulting in. It went well for a few months until I started realizing that we are just putting a Band-Aid. We are really not solving the actual problems. And that's where the friction started to happen, and I had to like step back and start relearning everything that I had learned. I still feel that we are doing that. That's why I needed to bring something more solid and that'll glue together teams and people in a more collaborative way than just bring the software, implement that thing kind of a deal.
Yeah, it's in the title, change management. People are terrified of change. We like the status quo. The biggest competition any coach has is not other coaches, it's the status quo. The biggest challenge any organization has, even though they might talk about change management, is their people are committed to the status quo, they're committed to the status quo. So you come in to say, I'm here for change management, and that's what they think they want. They don't actually want it, and they don't even know that. And the people definitely don't want it, and they can't see that. And so it's a strange place to be if that's the title you're brought in for.
You couldn't have nobody could have put it so nicely. You actually, it's not a difficult job. It's just very repetitive. You're just trying to fix something we're not even acknowledging.
Because you've heard me use the language, we live in a created world. So how we see the world becomes our world. And they can talk to you all they like about change management. If you can see that leader is telling their team, take time for yourselves, nurture yourselves, but the leader gets in at 5 a.m. and doesn't leave till 9 p.m., the message they're sending to their entire organization is, don't leave early or we will judge you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that I got to work with them on their mindset first, or nothing else matters.
That's what I'm trying to bring in. That's my struggle.
Want some help with that?
Yes, please. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, let's play. Look, it's going to it will require you to step into leadership. It will require you to use those very words I just used. When you're sitting down in a conversation with someone to talk about coming into their organization, you're going to have to start practicing, here's what I require of you. You might have to start, I'll play with some wording. You can play with how it lands for you later, but something like this. What you need to understand is that I can come in as a consultant, but I already know that you've had dozens of these throughout time come into your organization. And some make a bit of a difference and some make no difference whatsoever. And some are actually going to create chaos in their wake. But what I know is consulting on its own, pure consulting doesn't work. If it worked, then everyone who hired a consultant would be flying right now. And we know that's not the case. Some of the biggest organizations in the planet have crashed after hiring massive consulting firms. And some of the biggest consulting firms on the planet have collapsed too. So if pure consulting worked, none of that would have occurred. What we need to work on is the way that you think about the world, the way that you see the world, the way that you work with your direct reports and your board of directors and your clients and customers. If we're not looking at your mindset, everything else is a Band-Aid. Let me pause there. How does that sound as I articulate that? And this is recorded, by the way. I see you grab your pen.
Thank you. Yeah, that's just an impulse. Yes. No, that sounds great. Thank you. And that is so true. And you put it so nicely. That is so true.
And I can feel like I'm sitting more upright. I'm having to embody this. Even though I'm just role-playing with you, you've got to tap into that leader in you who's been there since you were 6 years old. I'm meeting you. You don't say these words, but this is your language, behind your language. I am talking to you as a peer. Either you get this or you don't. If you get it, we can talk. If you don't get it, that's great. I'm not for you. But that's the energy you have to bring. And I'm really channeling as I speak to you right now because you have to embody that,
No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
How does it feel as you imagine bringing that into your conversation?
It really feels like you put the words to what I was thinking, because I feel like I run in circles sometimes because I don't want to sound I don't want to challenge them. I want the job. I don't want to break the status quo, like you said. But then what's the point of doing that if you're not even going to challenge it? So, but it feels very real when you say that.
Yeah. Look, you have to find a way that they need you less than you need them. You have to find a way that they need you less than you need them. If you need them more than they need you, there's a neediness there. You're going to accept all sorts of criteria that they put on that doesn't make you feel good either immediately or 3 months down the road. So you have to show up in a powerful way, which means you need to create the resources so that I don't need you. I don't need this job. If you want to hire me for this, that would be great. We will make a massive change. If I'm not the right person for you, I'll be great. You'll go off and do what you do. I'll go off and that's the energy you've got to channel. So do you have resources that allow you to know, I don't need this client as much as they need me?
I do. At this time, I do.
Yeah. So let me put it this way, because I hear the at this time, which tells me there's this little bit of doubt. Or will it last that long? What will happen? If everything you've done until this moment in time has created the resources that you've got now to allow you to walk into those organizations and say what needs to be said. And you've done that based on all the experience you've had until now. The only thing that's going to happen in the future is your experience is going to grow. So if you created these resources now, more resources will come as time goes on. It's okay to have that human fear of, oh my God, will it run out? That's okay. That's very human. For most of history, if you didn't have that fear, you'd die if there was a famine or the crops didn't grow that year. But it's not the same in this moment. And your willingness to say to people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, is counterintuitively going to make you more money and more success down the road. And the counterintuitive part of it is we think, well, they'll hate me. They won't want to speak to me. And some of them won't. And they're not the right people for you. Your willingness to say what needs to be said is going to have you create more resources and more fun and more success with inspiring clients throughout the future.
I think I just had this quick moment when you were saying that. I am playing really small right now because I'm afraid of that little thing that you said. Because I still am in a practice mode. I feel like I'm making programs, I'm doing things, and I'm enjoying the process, but I'm not playing big. I'm not stepping out of my comfort zone and going and saying what needs to be said.
Okay, so let me model this for you right now. Anu, wake the hell up. There's no practice mode needed. In 2001, you said, I don't do things the way that other people do. And as a young woman in India, you said, I'm going to be a commercial pilot. You're a woman who's taken risks your entire life. When you were 6 years old, you'd sit on the wall, have kids looking up at you, and you'd be a leader and you'd be their counselor. You've been doing this your entire life. You don't need to practice. The practice has been done. There's 20, 30 years of practice. No more practice. There are people out there who need you. There are organizations that are dying. There are leaders that are failing because you're sitting there thinking, I need to practice. Stop the practice. Get out and tell them what needs to be said the way that I'm telling you what needs to be said. They need to hear this. And if they can't hear it, great, they're not for you. But you need to wake them up because they're ready for you and they're waiting for you.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah. Thanks. For anyone who's listening, not watching, I can see you breathing deeply. And I know you trust me. There are times when you may not go that direct to somebody. You might have to build trust first. And sometimes, you know what? You don't need to trust first. They'll trust your experience. They don't need to trust the relationship. They'll trust you more when you say what needs to be said than when you dance around the bush and say the nice things to hopefully get the gig. They'll trust you more. Yeah. And so I think while both of us are feeling all this energy, that's the perfect moment to say, we're complete for now.
Thank you. I am.
Anu, thanks. I can't wait to hear what happens. I'm thrilled you're here with us in Transition Excellence. And we've just lit the blue touch paper. That's it. So much more to come. I can't wait to see what happens.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. I'm so grateful for Transition Excellence, and I am also going to do the masterclass with you. So I'm taking everything on that you're bringing in the world. So thank you.
Awesome.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.